man was walking in the woods one day when he saw a bear out of the corner of his eye. He stopped, said a silent prayer. God, I know you can do all things. Will you please make this bear a fellow Christian? The bear caught up to the man, placed his paw on the man's shoulder, and said, Brother, will you pray with me? Dear God, for this meal that I am about to receive, make me truly thankful. This is The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilsman. A man was walking in the woods one day when he saw a bear out of the corner of his eye. He stopped, said a silent prayer. God, I know you can do all things. Will you please make this bear a fellow Christian? The bear caught up to the man, placed his paw on the man's shoulder, and said, Brother, will you pray with me? Dear God, for this meal that I am about to receive, make me truly thankful. This is The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilsman. Welcome to The Christian Bear. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Hilskamp. I'm so happy to have you join me in this conversation. Thank you for making the time. The Christian Bear is a space for reflection, faith sharing, public theology, and lively discussion. I don't claim to know it all, but hopefully in conversation we can get closer to the truth and co-create our truths. Are you enjoying The Christian Bear? Please give the podcast a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're using, and think about adding a short review. Also share this episode and the whole podcast with your friends and other people in your network. Consider contributing to my Patreon, the link for which is in the episode information. All funds raised through Patreon go to supporting the costs associated with producing and hosting this podcast. Now lean in and enjoy this episode of The Christian Bear. Welcome to episode 53 of The Christian Bear. Today I welcome my former student and friend Tristan Baker to the podcast. A 2018 graduate of Rosemont College, Tristan completed officer candidate school with the United States Marine Corps and served for 4 years on active duty with the Marines. He now lives in Ithaca, New York with his wife Kat, where he's a graduate student at Cornell University. Please join me in welcoming Tristan to The Christian Bear. And thank you again for joining us today on The Christian Bear. I'm really happy to have you. As I said before, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners and give a little background about who you are.
Yeah, thanks Ben for having me in the first place. Means a lot that you would reach out and ask me to be here. I'm again man of few words, so I'll be pretty brief on who I am. So I'm Tristan Baker. I graduated Rosemont College in 2018. Subsequently went to beautiful Marine Corps officer candidate school. Commissioned as an officer in the Marine Corps. Served my 4 years, and now I'm a graduate student at Cornell University's Industrial Labor Relations School, getting my master's in Industrial Labor Relations, and I'm going to be joining Global Foundries in Vermont here for a summer internship as a human resources business partner, and that's what I think I was designed to do. Kind of found my way, so that's me.
Awesome, thank you. And I should say for our listeners, Tristan was actually the very first Rosemont College student I met. He was on the search committee that hired me as an assistant dean, and then he served as an RA. And I can't remember if we called them head RAs or senior RAs, but he was one of our top RAs at Rosemont until he left from the Marine Corps. So I'm very happy to have you on the podcast. So like I said, this is our series on big questions. So I have a list of questions like you and I have already talked about. Some of these are silly, some of them are more profound. So I'm just going to kind of launch in and we'll go from there. So to get us started, Tristan, if you could have one song play every time you walked into your home, what would it be?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Surprisingly, I would say I don't. You may not know, but if you know, "Throw Some D's" by Rich Boy. I would like that song to be everywhere I go. I'd say that captures my heart and soul for sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm not actually sure I know who that is, but you know what?
It's like an early 2000s kind of rap song. It's a uh, more of like a southern kind of rap song, but
Hmm,
you've definitely heard it. It's been in media, and just recently been listening to it a lot. Again, there's no depth at all. It's just purely from a rhythmic standpoint. It's such a good song.
fair enough. Fair enough. What is a relatively basic task that you find very difficult?
Ooh, very difficult. I actually I think it's actually interviews. I That's one thing that I never would have thought I would have found to be difficult, and that's one thing I've found kind of in the professional degree program along the way is that I'm a good solid performer. I think I'm reasonably intelligent, but behavioral interviews, I for some reason I have this mental block where I just either a don't want to do well, and because I think the questions are ridiculous, or b I just don't think it's actually capturing who I am as a person, and therefore whatever the reason may be. That's one thing that I think is pretty simple. Most people tend to do okay in, and I'm just I've kind of haven't had a hard time, but I've deeply dislike and I'm not terribly good at.
How does that then or perhaps play off the fact that that you've worked in kind of HR, human resources? I realize that's only one part of the overall human resources portfolio, but do you think that plays into the fact that you've worked in kind of, I forget the military term, but you've worked in HR, you're going into HR.
Mhm.
Do you see any interplay there?
I do, and it's something. This is the question of most organizations right now, and not to get too HR, too wonky in the HR stuff, but it's really what companies, what organizations are trying to do is assess talent, right? That's the number one struggle that companies, organizations, etc., will always have is trying to find the right talent. And I know that you, being in your position at Love Bowley, I'm sure it's difficult to find talent. It's like that for any organization. And how do this is what organizations have designed is this whole this academic method of assessing future talent based off of past performance, right? And that's what it was designed to be, or the questions were designed to assess. But now what it's become is more of a process and how you answer the question in the STAR method, if
Mhm.
you've heard of it, or the now it's the PAR method, when you're delivering the answer, the problem, the action, the result, and you have to put yourself in this spotlight of like, this is what I did, and this is how this is what it did for the organization. Um, and I don't think that's like a real. I personally don't think that's a very solid measure of
Mhm.
whatever it is an organization is trying to assess in a candidate, of whether or not if they're thoughtful, if they're critical thinkers, if they're able to work on a team, you know, et cetera, if they have any sort of initiative. And so I think that's one thing. It's hard to demonstrate that in a very rigid type of interview style. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I'm seeing it from the HR perspective, and it's something that I would like to change in the future, of this candidate assessment process. Something I'm definitely thinking of.
Thank you. This pet peeve.
Wow. Yeah. Biggest pet peeve. Uh, I don't have too many. I think the number one pet peeve I have is when I see people do things for the wrong reasons, and it's damaging to, I think, I'll give you a kind of a loose example. I have a friend who really wants to do consulting. They want to be a consultant, and in order to do that from the HR perspective, it's called human capital consulting. And firms, it's a high, it's no mistake about it, very high paying job, especially at the master's level. And but this friend wants to do it specifically for the money, and only for the money, and in order to actually network into a vice president role, or something similar of the sort, but essentially all about the salary. And it's not about consulting. It's not about solving problems. It's not about working on a team. It's not to this individual. It's not about any of that. And oh, by the way, they're not particularly good at those things. So I'm talking to them throughout the semester, and I'm like, you really want to do consulting because I think you're going to be miserable. And this person is intent on doing it. And when you ask them why, it's, there's no mystery. It's about the salary. And I think that is what kind of drives me up a wall. And that's one of those things that will frequently kind of drive me up a wall when I prod and ask and try to show, maybe not show them because I don't know what the right answer is, but maybe to have some more years under my belt, and I can kind of say, hey, I think you should, put the brakes on this and think about what you really want, because it's a full-time job and it's high stress. And yes, the money's great, but will it really deliver exactly what you're looking for? And again, if it's for the wrong reason, which I think it might be in this particular scenario, yeah, huge pet peeve of mine.
Thank you. Is it more important to understand or be understood?
Understand, from my perspective, for sure. Um, well, I prefer to listen. I'm an introvert myself, and so I like to listen. I don't actually like to talk much. As a result, I like to listen. I like to consume information. I like to kind of maybe ponder. Maybe it's not really a good word for it, but kind of really try to find the root cause of whatever it is that it might be ailing someone, or the root cause of what problems exist in whatever it is the person's talking about, or whatever the situation may be, and then develop a plan, and then execute and hopefully cure or solve whatever that issue is. But if you fail to understand something properly in the first place, you can't find a permanent solution, right? So it's also, I don't think it's anyone else's role to understand me, or like I don't want to burden or place a burden on others to try to comprehend or understand exactly what I'm saying. So, but I will do it for others, or I will do it for other, I guess, humans. Yeah. And I will force myself to try to understand whatever it is ailing this person. But again, I would never expect that from someone else.
Thank you. Question that you may remember, pulling this straight from our Rosemont days. If you could get rid of one U.S. state, which state would it be and why?
Get rid of one U.S. state. Probably Florida. I'm coming after Florida. No, Florida's okay. It's just it's kind of where I think that the highest population of retired people are, and I think there's really no other good reason other than it's a state where
all the reasons you can go after Florida, you went after the retirees.
And that's what
I mean.
There shouldn't
weird politics, some weird relationships to science, and you go after the old people.
The reason for that is because it's not really the retired people. I think it's the mentality that it's like, well, I'm retired, so therefore I deserve to live in a warm place, or a place around. It's a ridiculous thing, because it's why not retire and serve the community around you, wherever it is that you grew up, wherever it is. Why Florida? And maybe it's not the state's fault. Maybe it's a misplaced. My wanting to erase Florida is misplaced. It's more so that frustration with the mentality. But yeah, to answer the question, Florida for sure.
Bow ties, neckties, or no ties?
Neckties. neckties. Well, okay, that's not true. I would prefer no ties, but if I had to choose between a necktie or a bow tie, necktie for sure.
Got it. Pencils.
Well, you know me, I'm a Marine, so crayons. I'm going to eat those things up.
By the way, that was the question I was a little afraid of.
Really?
I was
That
going to
was the
do.
one.
I was going to do the question of like give you two options of crayon companies, but it turns out that other than Crayola, all the other companies that make crayons I had never heard of. Nor had my mom, who works in early childhood education. So it was like I have no idea how to ask this question.
That's right. That's right. Big crayon connoisseur myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So should toilet paper hang over or under?
Ooh, it's got to. I'm again. My dad beat this into me when I was young. It's got to be over. Cannot be under. And if it is under, you got to change it. You got to be the one to change it and flip it.
Amen to that. What's the strangest gift you've ever received?
Strangest gift. Strangest gift I've ever received. I think. Yeah, I don't have a strange gift, but I would say there was a when I was like 13. I think I was 13. My uncle, which I haven't really spent a lot of time with throughout my life, he's my dad's brother. Still love him, but don't really know him that well. He sent me a. It was for my birthday. It was 13. Sent me a container that was filled with plastic bugs, as like a and it had like a chart that showed what the bugs were and what they were called, and so you could place them on basically this big chart and look at. And so I just thought it was a very odd thing to send a 13-year-old boy. That's usually it was kind of more geared towards 8 or 9 children. And I got it when I was 13. Still appreciated the gift, but it was like out of nowhere, and also not particularly fascinated by bugs. So I was like, okay, thanks, Uncle Miles. It was odd, but yeah, I'd say that's the weirdest one.
Got it. Got it. What was the most defining moment of your life to date?
Most defining moment of my life to date. You know, I would probably say, not to be cheesy, well, I guess two. One would be meeting my now wife, and the moment that we met. I'm talking like the moment that we met in college, freshman year orientation. We were inseparable, um, and that changed um, my perspective on relationships forever, and what relationships could be. So that's probably the first one. The second one, uh, probably Marine Corps Officer Candidate School, and I say that only because it's as bad as it sounds, and to live in this prison like environment for however many weeks, and you're being screened and evaluated every second of the day, and pushing yourself to I mean, your body's failing as a result. You're pushing yourself so hard, and you're still overcoming adversity. Yeah, those things were incredibly life changing, and it changed my perspective on what human beings are able to accomplish in time compressed scenarios. And yeah, I would say those are the two most defining moments of my life.
Oh gosh, I was very scared that you were going to say something of the Marine Corps and leave Cat completely out of that question. And I'm thinking that I'm hearing her in the background. I was thinking, oh God, I may not have him for much
Oh,
longer this interview.
yeah, yes, definitely. Yeah, I don't know if you asked me the same question. I don't know if I would ever be in that in her scenario. I joke about that, but
I will
yeah,
say for any of our listeners who have military backgrounds and have a much better understanding of officer candidate school than I do, Tristan actually went twice because of an injury the first time around. So you think you had it bad
that's right.
once, this guy did it twice.
Yep, I was one of those guys that broke his foot at week 7 of 10 weeks, and well, I fractured my foot, and it wasn't like a severe fracture, but it was enough to I could not continue. Yeah, that was going back the second time. That was yeah, probably one of the toughest things I've ever had to do, and that was absolutely defining.
Awesome. Where am I in my questions? If a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound?
I pondered this question a lot throughout my life, um, and I think absolutely yes, it makes a sound.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Cats. Yep. I've
Cornell or Harvard?
oh
Oh, you're go
no,
ahead. Go ahead.
for
No,
the
cats or
cats and
dogs?
dogs. So for the dogs, I was a dog fan my entire life until we. I don't know if you ever met. You probably haven't met Wednesday, our cat, but I don't know if you even know the story. But we. I won't go too much in the story, but the reason I'm a cat fan now is because of our relationship with our current cat, and we had to literally go to the court of law to acquire this cat um, that was being neglected by her owner, her previous owner, and yeah, changed my perspective on cats forever. And they're also cleaner. They take care of themselves, low maintenance, and they're fantastic animals. The best.
Okay. Cornell or Harvard?
Is that? Do you even have to ask that question? That's an astounding. Well, okay, I would say, of course, my personal preference is Cornell, but if you compare, depending on the program that you're comparing, in some ways Harvard, but yeah, for sure, Cornell, Big Red, do or die.
Okay. Navy or Army?
Navy.
Navy or Marines?
I mean, we are a branch. We are our own branch. We are under the Navy, but of course the Marine Corps. But they are still our brothers and sisters.
I was very curious how you would answer that question, and you answered it in the absolutely quintessential Tristan Baker way. That there was a little bit of analysis there rather than just a Marine and maybe a hoorah, and that was that.
But yeah, I mean, they are. We do everything together. Not everything, but we do a lot of things together. The Navy and the Marine Corps are very, very close knit. But yeah, the Marine Corps is, I mean, an astounding head and shoulders above everyone else, of course.
Can peace be achieved through military strength?
Oh man. So you'd have to just to kind of back it up, Mr. PhD EDD here, and not to give you a lesson. You gotta, I think, take into consideration what the military is designed to do. And the military is designed to carry out, you know, strategic objectives, strategic political objectives. And if those political objectives happen to be peace, which is often not the case, how do you define peace? How do you set conditions and achieve peace? Probably not virtually possible. So assuming that that's true, it's a state actor carrying out its strategic political objectives against another state actor, and the military is used as a result, and that state actor ends up winning. Um, Potentially, it could create peace, but I think that it's a little bit more complex than that, of course. So, short answer is no. Long answer is potentially.
I think that's a question that folks with a military background or have probably considered more than any other group. So I was very curious to hear your answer, but I'm reminded. I mean, though I would love to say an absolute no to that question, I'm reminded of Stokely Carmichael, who said that nonviolence as a form of protest is fine as long as the group that you're opposing has a conscience. And that was Carmichael's justification to say,
Hmm.
in Carmichael's case, we're talking civil rights movement in the U.S. That was Carmichael's way of saying that nonviolence would only get one so far. But in any case, I appreciate your answer. What's your favorite cocktail?
Cocktail. Not a big cocktail fan. Can I go? Can I go beer on this one?
Say that again.
Can I go? Can I go beer on this one? As in,
Yep,
okay,
that's
beer,
fine.
favorite cocktail.
Fair enough. Describe your relationship with nature.
I used to love it a lot. Used to hike, and I used to even love the cold. And again, after spending some time in the Marine Corps, I still love nature. I hate the cold, and spent a lot less time as a student outdoors. I used to like to camp a lot, and now coming out of the Marine Corps again, not dying to go back right away. So I'm going to give it some time, but I do miss it a lot.
What is the most profound or defining book that you've read?
Yeah, I would say hands down, Discourses by the Greek philosopher Epictetus. He wrote Discourses, and I actually carry a copy around in my backpack everywhere I go, just to kind of pull it up and read it as often as I can, and immediately reread it as soon as I finish. It's my favorite book of all time, and it's defined, it's solidified my core values for sure, and probably have for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Thank you. What is the most important punctuation mark in the English language?
I know what you're gonna say. I know what yours is. It's the comma, and I would say for me, it's the semicolon. It's got to be the semicolon, and it's because it's so underused. But when it's used, it's effective. Especially in resumes, I love seeing specifically, like did blah 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 specifically semicolon boom. It's such to me it's a awesome way to just deliver in addition to whatever it is that you're trying to whatever point you're trying to make.
Yeah, mine would probably be the comma. You're probably right.
I think that was in your intro to us as a RA staff, and if you remember CJ, he when he saw when you commented on the fact that you love the Oxford comma, and CJ was like, "Who is this guy? What's his obsession with commas?" And that's I just remember that being a big deal to CJ, jokingly, and yeah, now I know he's the
Okay,
comma guy.
if we're gonna get specific, comma maybe not so much. Oxford comma definitely.
The Oxford comma, yes.
Is it more important to love or be loved?
Uh, I think to love and similar to the understood by understanding, for the similar reasons to love, more important, the act of loving, really showing, and you just got to be ready for that rejection, and you're ready for the world not to accept your love, but the most important things that you attempted to love, and that's the input to the world. It's not You're not being reactive in receiving love and hoping that you're or I guess hoping to receive love. You are giving love regardless of the outcome.
Amen. Would you rather be in charge of 10 Rosemont geese or spend another year as an RA?
I loved being an RA. That's it's one of those, and I miss it actually sometimes. It's such a good job interacting with residents, and there are residents that I will remember for the rest of my life, and there are bosses that or people on our leadership team that I will remember for the rest of my life, including you. And I loved it. So absolutely being an RA for another year. Now the geese that's it's a hard sell because they were just such awesome folks to have on campus all the time.
For anyone who's not familiar with the Rosemont geese are a particular type of
Aggressive,
weird and wonderful and
wild
aggressive
animal.
and just the strangest creatures that will attack anyone. For my friends who may be listening from Wagner College, kind of like your turkeys, but just even more aggressive. What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, it's the big question, right? That's I guess that's what I assumed when he said the big questions. I assumed that would have been probably number one. Meaning of life. To me, I don't necessarily think that there is a meaning, and I think that again, if there is a meaning, it's to create conditions, it's to set conditions for yourself to of the things that you would like to do to accomplish. Ultimately, centering on duty, responsibility to others, and service to others, and ultimately, you know, leaving the world better than when you found it. I think that's the ultimate meaning of life. Not to make it brief or too short, but that yeah, I think it's as simple as that.
I think that's a great answer. Thank you. So, my final question: is there any one big question you thought I'd ask that I didn't ask?
Um, well, I thought since it's a Christian centered podcast, I thought you might ask something about religions, maybe world religions, or even within the separate sects of Christianity. Tying in a question regarding opinions, etc., about faith, religion, organized religion, etc. But no, other than that, I think the meaning of life question. I think I was absolutely expecting that, and I think it's an awesome question.
Well, Tristan, thank you so much again for being on this episode of the Christian Bear. I've really appreciated hearing your answers to these both profound and not as profound questions, and your thoughts through some relatively tough topics. So again, thank you so much for joining me and for being with us today.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate it.
This has been the Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilskamp.